Like me for years, you may assume that if you get the promotion or you get the deal, you get the contract, it must be God's will. But what if you got the result and it cost you your alignment? What if you didn't get the result, but that closed door actually protected you? What if the missed opportunity was meant to prune you so you can actually grow? What if the blessing isn't the win, but the man you're becoming is?
This is Coming Up Clutch with JR, helping the world's best in sports, entertainment, and business make winning a lifestyle.
What's up? It's JR, and
it's time for the 5-minute drill.
I call this segment of the show the 5-minute drill because I give you a strategy that'll take no longer than 5 minutes to implement. This is a proven strategy to help you come up clutch more often in at least one area of your life, leading you to more wins and positioning you to maximize your success and significance. I'm about helping you make winning a lifestyle, not a one-time thing. So let me ask you something that may sting a little here. Are you working harder to prove yourself to the world or to prove that God got it right when he made you? Because those two aren't the same thing. And based on the conversations that I'm having with my private clients and even with my Clutch Club members, especially around the topic of fear of failure, I'm confident in saying that most high performers, they don't know the difference. So by the end of this episode, you're going to understand the difference between fear that fuels your stewardship and fear that replaces your faith. And you're going to have a strategy to recalibrate your performance with your faith and identity. And real quick, if you're a family guy listening to this today and you've been crushing it in your career, but feel like your wife and your kids are getting your leftovers, again, I don't sugarcoat things. This is a problem. And it's not because you're lazy, and it's not because you don't care. It's because you've got invisible opponents getting in your way. And like I tell my clients, you can't fight what you can't see. So that's why I created the Invisible 4 assessment. It's fast, it's free, and it'll expose what's blocking you from bringing your best home. So if you're serious about being elite in every area of your life, if you want to bring your best home more consistently, then take the assessment. Face your Invisible 4. It takes less than 3 minutes, and it just may be the aha you need to get to your next level. So just go to jamesreed.com/assessment to take it. Trust me, you won't regret it. And if you're empowered by the show and learning something, make sure you follow us on Apple Podcasts so you don't miss out when we drop new episodes. Just hit that purple plus on the top right-hand corner of the podcast app. When you do that, this podcast has the chance to get in the hands of more people that need it. So help someone out today. Make sure you're following the show. And also, speaking of helping someone out, share today's episode. Play that hero to your family, friends, and teammates by giving them the link to this or sending them to comingupclutch.com. And when you go and post about this episode on social, make sure to tag me. All right, 5-minute drill. Let's get it. So this drill came out of a conversation inside the Clutch Club. You know, one of my guys, former D1 athlete, now in sales, he said something powerful. He said, you know, guys, like fear of failure, it's always motivated me. When I feel like I might fail, I go harder. So curious, does fear of failure motivate you too? Or here's another question. Has anyone ever told you that fear of failure is a bad thing? Well, here's what I told my guy. I said, man, like that's having that fear of failure as a motivator, that's not wrong. Fear isn't the enemy. Fear's not the villain here. In fact, I told him this. I said, your faith can't show up without fear. If there's no risk, no uncertainty, no tension, there's no need for faith. But here's the nuance. It's when you become so obsessed with the result, so obsessed with proving yourself to the world, that faith doesn't even have room to operate. That's when the fear of failure becomes an invisible opponent. There's healthy fear, which sounds like this, you know, like if I don't steward my gifts, it won't go well. That's ownership. That's responsibility. That's maturity. And then there's the toxic fear. It sounds like, well, if I don't get the result, I'm not enough. Or what are others going to think of me? That right there is hijacking your identity. Again, one fear of failure fuels your stewardship. The other fear fuels proving yourself through results. And those two paths lead to very different outcomes internally, even if the external result looks the same. And if you build your life proving instead of stewarding, here's what happens long term. You win, but you're anxious. You achieve your goals, but you're still restless. You technically are a success on paper, but you never feel secure. Because the whole proving game, it never ends. There's always another scoreboard. There's always another deal. There's always another contract. Stewardship produces peace. Proving, it produces more pressure. Then Colossians 3:23 enters the conversation. It says, whatever you do, work at it with all your heart as though working for the Lord, not for human masters. Notice what this doesn't say. It doesn't say work for applause. It doesn't say work for validation. It doesn't say work for the scoreboard. It says work for the Lord. That's stewardship. That's alignment. Well, back to my Clutch Club member. I asked him, I said, hey, if you half stewarded your gifts, like just halfway own them, did not fully own those things, but you still got the result you wanted, did you truly honor God? That's the argument most people lose. By the way, when I asked him this, you saw the light bulb go off in his head, and then you looked around the Zoom room and you saw the whoa. This is the argument that most people lose, because success can mask disobedience. You can win and still not steward your gifts well. You can close the deal and still cut corners internally. You can hit the numbers and still operate from insecurity. And if I'm being very honest with you here, I'm guilty of all of it. But the question I had to face in my faith journey, and I'm glad I did when I did, because it completely shifted my perspective in my leadership. Are you after your desired result, or are you after God's true blessing? You know, I know that I started heavier with scripture today, so I want to switch gears and ground this conversation in science. Motivation psychology. Specifically, I'm referring to self-determination theory by Edward D.C. and Richard Ryan. It shows that when your performance is driven by external validation, your identity becomes fragile. Your brain enters this constant threat detection mode. Your amygdala fires, your cortisol rises, you become hyper-focused on outcomes. By the way, this is why so many high performers feel anxious when their numbers dip. They feel empty after wins, especially the big ones. Like you hear it all the time. You know, they won the Super Bowl and then they go into depression. This is also why, you know, you hear people, they can't rest even after success. Honestly, this is the profile of most of my private clients who've hired me, especially my Major League Baseball players, because their nervous system equates outcome with safety. But when performance is values driven, you know, align with your true identity and what's inside of you, your brain shifts into what we call intrinsic motivation. That produces greater resilience and lower anxiety and at the end of the day, more sustainable performance. I mean, I'll take those all day, won't you? In other words here, fourth grade English, when you shift from proving yourself to the world, proving you're enough, to stewarding the gifts and talents and skills you have, your nervous system stabilizes. Your faith instead lowers the threat response because you're now not trying to control every outcome and result. Look at King Saul. I mean, the guy got results, military victories, public approval, external success. But then we see in 1 Samuel 15, he partially obeys God, keeps what he wasn't supposed to keep. And he justifies it because the result looked good. Saul feared losing the approval of his people. You know, the later king, here we go, Jared's going to talk about David again. I told you, I've done a lot of study on David. Saul feared losing approval of his people. David feared losing the presence of God. Oof. Saul protected his image. David protected his alignment to God. Saul chased outcomes. David pursued intimacy with God. In the end, only one of those two was called a man after God's own heart. So let's get the 5-minute drill around this topic. Pretty straightforward. And remember, as I promised, it's meant to help you recalibrate your pursuit of elite performance with your faith and identity. So here's the deal. This is the drill. Before you pursue your biggest goal today, of course, this assumes that you have a goal written down, at least one goal written down for your day. Ask yourself these questions. Again, these are going to help you recalibrate. First question is, what gifts, talents, or skills are needed to accomplish this goal today? All right. Then the next question becomes, how will I make sure that I'm stewarding them instead of using them to control the outcome or prove my worth? The third question is, what would it look like to pursue this goal in a way that leaves room for God to move? This probably, they're all good questions, but this one right here is the big one. What would it look like to pursue this goal in a way that leaves room for God to move? And then the last question is, how will I keep my identity intact regardless of the outcome or the results? Okay, just 5 minutes. It'll take you 5 minutes to answer these 4 questions. I'll tell you, for years, I hate to even admit this, I bought into the mindset that if I get the result, God will be pleased with me. Especially around the impact world. Like if I'm making an impact, I get the result, God's going to be pleased with me because I'm using my gifts, talents, and skills for his benefit. But the kingdom mindset, it's if I steward my gifts faithfully, God is honored regardless of the outcome. That's the perspective shift. Like me for years, you may assume that if you get the promotion or you get the deal, you get the contract, it must be God's will. But what if you got the result and it cost you your alignment? What if you didn't get the result, but that closed door actually protected you? What if the missed opportunity was meant to prune you so you can actually grow? What if the blessing isn't the win, but the man you're becoming is? That's a massive shift because now your peace is no longer tied to your performance, and that's freeing. How much better would your life be living and working and competing with that type of freedom? It's a game changer. I've had seasons where I was winning externally, but internally restless. That wasn't freedom. Because if I'm honest, I wasn't pursuing alignment. I was pursuing affirmation. And those are not the same thing. When I shifted from did I win to did I steward my gifts, talents, and skills, I'm telling you, everything changed. Less anxiety, more clarity, stronger leadership. Oh, yeah. And I actually won more. Go figure. All right. But that's this week's 5-minute drill. Now, to get you momentum with this drill, my encouragement to you, again, right after this episode, take 30 to 60 seconds to visualize yourself executing this drill. Close your eyes, picture one of your goals, see yourself giving your absolute best effort, owning and stewarding your gifts fully, and then trusting God with the outcome. I'm going to caught myself there. Even if it doesn't land the way you want, you're still trusting God. See yourself steady. Feel it, own it, lock this in before the day gets away from you. And this week, audit your motivations. Are you trying to prove yourself to the world, or are you proving God got it right when he made you with the gifts, talents, and skills that you have? And you heard me mention fear of failure being an invisible opponent. So like I mentioned before today's episode, if you're a family guy who's serious about being elite in every area of your life, if you're that guy who wants to bring his best home more consistently, then head on over to jamesreed.com/assessment to take my Invisible 4 assessment. That's jamesreed.com/assessment. I'm telling you, it's going to expose if your fear of failure is preventing you from showing up how you want to at home. And then obviously help you do something about it now. So when you're done doing today's 5-minute drill, take the assessment. Till then, don't forget, winning isn't a result, it's a lifestyle. So keep pursuing that life of champions.
This episode is over. Get more No BS content to help you master your mind, body, and relationships by hitting subscribe. This is Coming Up Clutch with JR. Thanks for listening.